Great, thanks.
I think it's a good answer.
I think it's a good answer too. Aidan, is that something you worry about?
The reason for having workers at all is to deal with the exceptions. And so as the outsourced providers come up with the goods on automating my processes, increasingly the only problems people deal with are the higher value ones anyway. So one would hope that their management systems will deliver to me what I'm looking for in seeking stable teams. But it is a frustration if the faces are new on every trip, certainly.
Thank you. Thank you. Question in the front row.
Hello, my name is Sunaina. I'm with TD Bank Financial Group in Canada, and my question is to the clients, specifically to BT. Sam, you talked about the Center of Excellence in your organization, and one of the key points you mentioned was working with the internal customers. I'm curious to understand what steps do you take and how do you effectively manage the expectations of the internal stakeholders who perhaps want to jump the gun and very excited about doing this, and you being this the Center of Excellence, how do you effectively manage that? And secondly, bridging the communication between your internal stakeholders and the vendor. Thank you.
Right. So I think in every organisation's evolution, you get to a point where in a company the size of BT, we have lots of different lines of business. Everybody's very excited about some of the opportunities that offshoring can represent. And they're very supportive of the Centre of Excellence concept because they don't want to individually do all the research and then repeat it many times across the organisation. So to be honest, it's taken a little bit of time for people to get to that conclusion. But now that they're there, I think there's good support for actually doing it. And we are able now to provide the resource to actually focus on the appropriate things. So we are working on behalf of the whole organisation to look at our location strategy. Where do we want to be globally? Where in India do we want to be in terms of locations, that kind of thing. So it obviously makes sense to do it once so people see the benefit because it's reducing their internal costs of actually doing the decision. But also we can add a lot of value just on sharing learning experiences, creating processes for them, and just helping them understand all the issues that are involved with the offshoring process.
Is there also a benefit from the standpoint of being able to apply a broader sourcing base as well? If they run off on their own, sometimes they're left to negotiate by themselves.
So we have a number of partners in this space, and the businesses know who the partners are, and we generally work very closely together on the creation of those. But I do think that there's always going to be somebody that's got a bright idea somewhere, and our view is very much that it should only be on an exception basis for a service that isn't currently provided by our partner base.
Great. This gentleman here, first row, another first row.
Here we read and on the web about backlash to all this offshoring and outsourcing, and call it whatever, global or otherwise. Does anybody have a view on this? What's going to happen? Is it just going to die a natural death in the UK and in America?
I have to say, when I was presented with this topic, first thing I did was jump on Google and try to find things that people have written about the backlash, the quote backlash. I couldn't find much. The last sort of vitriolic articles that were in the American press, at least, were the last time we had a presidential election, which is not an accident. It's not. I mean, these are the kinds of issues that our politicians seize on to try to appeal to the large populace in regard to issues that certainly Americans, and I'll speak for Americans primarily, are concerned about jobs. They're always concerned about jobs, but our economy has created millions of new jobs in the last 5 to 10 years. The actual impact, before it was jobs going to India, it was NAFTA, which sent jobs to Latin America. I think in general, the opinion is those, while not well implemented necessarily, and still politically sensitive, and still restricted in some areas like state and local government and companies that have strong labor unions that cause certain kinds of clerical and business process work not to be easily outsourced, that that jumps up from time to time. I'm not sure there's a lot of emotion around it. I can't really talk knowledgeably about the UK. I don't know. I'm sure Aidan probably or Sam can.
I think backlash is, I think there are two forms of backlash, and I think there is the macro backlash, the politicians jumping on the bandwagon. But certainly at a company level, I think backlash is a very real problem, and it's one that the line managers are dealing with day to day. It's not comfortable for a line manager to tell his staff that their jobs are being taken away. It doesn't actually matter whether that means they're going to India or whether the company is just closing down. So I think that the backlash at a company level is very strong, and it's one of the areas I was emphasizing. Communication gets around it. You spend all your time communicating to your staff about what's going to happen, but it doesn't eradicate it. I mean, the emotion of losing your job it's irrelevant whether it goes to India or somewhere else.
Yeah, that's right. I'm actually going to have to call a halt to our discussion. We'd love to stay and answer some more of your questions, but it's actually break time. So I want to thank you for coming. I'm absolutely thrilled at the size of the group. You're all lined up in the back. And I want to thank the panelists, because I think as a consumer of their comments, this was very interesting to me. So thank you, everybody.